The Rangers are not even a month into the season, and they've already passed maybe the biggest test of the year with flying colors. On today's show, I'm talking about why it's so important the Rangers survive this road trip with a wonderful win on Sunday night. All that and more on this episode of Locked on Rangers. Let's get to it.
You are Locked on Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast. Part of the Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the World Series champion Texas Rangers. I'm Bryce Patrick, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan covering this team for 11 seasons, including all 6 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank y'all so much for making Locked on Rangers your first listen every single day. If you're not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Patrick. You can follow the show at Locked on Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, before we get into this wild and, good enough series for the Rangers in Atlanta, this episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. From brakes to exhaust kits and beyond, eBay Motors has over 122 million parts to keep your ride or die alive. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to bring home a win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Now, the Rangers are sitting here on April 22nd with a winning record, coming off a 17-game stretch without an off day, the longest of the season. Of course, it was started about a week into the season, and they came out with a losing record on that 17-game stretch, 8-9, but they did enough. They survived, and here they are with a winning record atop the AL West, heading into a midweek series against the Mariners, who have been much better in the last week or so after a truly terrible start. Truly terrible start for most everybody in the AL West outside of your Texas Rangers. It's not been a great start, but by no means. The starting rotation has had some questions for sure. The 2 young rookies that showed all the promise in the world and started off the year as a Rookie of the Year, maybe even co-favorites, have been just fine to less than fine at points. Corey Seager still has not hit his stride really at all. And the Rangers demoted their closer, 2 weeks into the season? But it seems like they already have a pretty darn good replacement in Kirby Yates. We'll talk about him more later on in the show because he has been an absolute revelation for the Rangers. But still, with all these things going on, with losing Nathaniel Lowe for the first 3 weeks of the season, he's finally back. Losing Josh Young less than a week into the season for a 2-month stretch, that was rough. But these Rangers just keep coming. They just keep coming, and they keep getting enough wins to keep themselves above 500, still in the race, and they are still waiting for so many injury reinforcements, which, again, the entire mantra of this season is just wait till those future Hall of Famers or potential future Hall of Famers get back off the IL and start rejoining this rotation. Then, that's when things are really going to click. You thought the offense would click before then, but even the offense has not really clicked as much as you'd want it. They'd struggle with the home run ball leading into this series, and then, of course, they just piled on the long balls in this one, get themselves back around the middle of the pack in home runs in Major League Baseball. Still a bit of a power outage in general. Still waiting for Corey Seager to hit his second home run of the year. Still waiting for Wyatt Langford to hit his first. God, I feel like it's coming at some point, but maybe if we just stop talking about it or thinking about it, then it'll happen. But coming out on Sunday night, going down 3-0 in the first inning, Michael Lorenzen giving up a 3-run bomb to Marcell Ozuna, who is one of the hottest hitters on the planet outside of Travis d'Arnaud, who is just apparently, if you're a catcher that has been in the Braves organization and you're facing the Rangers, then boy, you are in for a good day, probably, because Shea Langeliers and Travis d'Arnaud both having 3 homer games against the Rangers in a 3-week stretch is just kind of wild, weird, and confusing, but something you just kind of want to write off. But coming back from down 3-0 and having that start by Michael Lorenzen to really buckle down in this one, only allowed 3 hits, struck out 7, and all of the runs came on that 3-run bomb. And after that, he was just nails and just waited for this Rangers offense to click into gear because they knew they would. I mean, Vines has had a okay start to the season, but he's a rookie and pitching for his job every single time he's out there for the Braves as that fifth starter. And the Rangers got to him. He left some changeups in the zone, and Andrew Knizner, with his first bomb of the year, being the hero in this one after I compared his offense unfavorably to Austin Hedges. Thank you for making me eat those words, Andrew Knizner. I mean, still a 450 OPS, but hey, a 3-run bomb, a couple of hits, first multi-hit game for him of the season, while Jonah Heim is on the bereavement list due to the loss of his mother-in-law, sending best wishes and prayers and thoughts for the Heim family. I know that is such an incredibly tough time, but Andrew Knizner being called up into the starting role as the primary catcher while Heim is gone, stepped up in a big way in this one. And again, this offense is incredibly deep, and getting home runs from so many different people, getting Evan Carter's 3rd home run of the year, getting Adolis Garcia's 6th home run of the year, and Adolis Garcia's 6th home run being the deciding factor, and it being a 2-run homer because Evan Carter finally got a hit off a lefty. He did it in a weird and wild and very fitting way of just a slow dribbler to the right side that he used his incredible speed to beat out. Hey, got on base, ahead of Adolis Garcia for a 2-run bomb in the 8th to extend the Rangers' lead, give them some insurance runs that they would end up needing, because at the time it was just a 1-run lead. David Robertson gave up the 1 unearned run in a really weird inning with he should have had 1 more strikeout than he did, and this hit that scored the run was because of a couple of missed calls on a ball completely in the strike zone, and then a check swing that was not checked, but ended up being a dribbler to the right side on a play that Marcus Semien was covering second base for some reason, just had completely vacated his normal second base spot. Otherwise, it might have been a double play, kept the Rangers from giving up that run. Might have been a 3-run save situation for Kirby Yates and just pitching the 9th inning as opposed to coming in for an inning and a third, which seems to be his norm these days. The last 3 appearances for Yates have been an inning and a third, and he's gotten the win and the save and another save in those appearances. He's been fantastic in this Rangers offense, just not giving up, getting into this pen and just getting runs, getting home runs, and bringing in the offense, which has struggled so much, is huge for this team. Finding their confidence, finding a win. It wasn't like the Rangers just got absolutely waxed and boat raced in all of these. I mean, these were close games. They had pretty good starting pitching for all of these appearances, especially against this Braves offense that's just insanely good. I mean, I was bemoaning Heaney's first couple of innings on Friday night because, frankly, they were tough to watch because Heaney just throws so many pitches and so rarely pitches deep into a game. I mean, I believe this was, maybe the second time that he's pitched 5 innings, but he ended up making it a good outing. 5 innings, 3 runs, couple of home runs against the Braves, and 5 strikeouts. That's solid. And this pen needs every single inning it can get from its starters. Then you go to Saturday's game, and Eovaldi couldn't quite get through 6, but in comes John Gray in a surprised bullpen appearance. First one for him of the season. Maybe there will be more later on. This is just a one-off deal. Bruce Bochy said it was his normal bullpen day, so instead of throwing his regular bullpen on regular rest in between starts, he said, hey, why don't you throw that bullpen on the mound in a high-leverage game? And he came in, he got 5 outs, 4 of them on strikeouts, and looked absolutely wicked nasty, and then ended up losing that game because it got out of hand because Austin Pruitt, again, was pitching in a leverage situation. Not the highest leverage, but still semi-leverage on a back-to-back day. And it was, once again, predictably kind of rough for Austin Pruitt. He has not had a single appearance where he has not given up a run for the Rangers in 4 outings this season. I don't imagine he stays on the roster when Josh Sborz gets called back up. I mean, he's got to be the first bullpen arm that goes down. I know there are guys with options, but still, he is not a useful arm in this pen at this point. And hopefully Josh Sborz comes back sooner as opposed to later. We'll talk more about that later on. But still, just getting the win, gutting it out, and having a hard-fought series with the Braves, who were incredibly hot. I mean, they came in after sweeping the Astros, which apparently is a thing that's much easier to do this year, which is kind of fun to watch from afar as a hater. But still, they came in on a heater. They took the first two for the Rangers, and credit to the Rangers. It'd be very easy on the final day of a 17-game stretch without an off day when you go down 3 runs in the first inning against the Braves, who are one of the best teams in baseball. It'd be really easy to just kind of, roll over and quit. This team didn't. This team didn't at all. They salvaged a win, ended a 2-game losing streak, did not let it spiral into more, which has been a key for this team, not letting those losing streaks end up as long losing streaks. Just getting out of there with the win while still above 500. I mean, this team passed its first big test in a huge, huge way while it waits for reinforcements, which, by the way, there are quite a few coming back. We're going to talk about that and more right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and to level it up to peak performance. Supercharger, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. This episode is also brought to you by Monopoly Go. We've all been there, either as a player or a fan. It's halftime and the scoreboard is not looking good. You're feeling low, not sure your team can pull out a win. That's when you dig deep, lift up your head, and say to yourself, time to get back in the game, pull off some bank heists, and take as much of my friends' money as I possibly can. That's right, the smash hit mobile game Monopoly Go lets you compete with your friends to get the most riches and the biggest empire. It's Monopoly you love, but on your phone, anytime, with tons of new twists, including leaderboards to compare your progress to your buddies. So there's so much to do. You can play on countless dynamic Monopoly boards, make your friends bankrupt by smashing their landmarks with a wrecking ball, charge other players rent for your iconic properties. You can even work with your friends to crack open community chests in tournaments to get extra rewards and climb the leaderboard. So get back out there, put on your game face, and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. Now, the Rangers have been very injured to start this season. Obviously, they have Jacob deGrom, Max Scherzer, and Tyler Mahle on the shelf for we thought would be about half the season for each of them. And while Mahle's still hopefully coming back in July, deGrom probably coming back in August at this point. Scherzer was supposed to come back in June, but that has not been the case. He is almost certainly, barring some kind of setback on his rehab, hopefully, knock on wood, that doesn't happen. But right now it's looking like Max Scherzer is going to be back way sooner than initially anticipated from that surgery on his herniated disc. He is having his first rehab start on Wednesday. Exactly where it'll be is TBD at this point. Almost certainly going to be either at Frisco or at Round Rock. Both of those teams are at home this week, so kind of a coin flip as to see where he will end up doing his first rehab start. He is projected to throw about 50 pitches on Wednesday, and then would likely make at least 3 rehab starts. So going by a normal calendar, going about every 5th day, which minor leagues don't play on Monday because of how the schedule works now. So that would make his second rehab start on next Tuesday. So that would be April 30th. Then May 5th would probably be his next rehab start, the third rehab start after that. And then if he's still on that same normal schedule, then it seems like that road trip where the Rangers go to Colorado, that could be about the earliest we expect Max Scherzer back. 3 rehab starts seems like a little few, especially since he's just throwing 50 pitches in this first one. Maybe he ramps that up to 60 in the second, 70 in the third, and then when he actually makes his regular season debut, he's at around an 80 pitch limit. Maybe that's what it ends up being. But I think somewhere around the middle of May is more likely at this point, especially given the Rangers don't want to push him too hard. He keeps saying that he's fine. He's absolutely fine. I mean, the Rangers have a 3 different city road trip in early May. They have from the 3rd to the 5th in Kansas City. Then they have from the 6th to the 8th in Oakland. And then that road trip ends from the 10th to the 12th in Colorado before they come home against the Guardians. I think that series in the smack dab middle of May is more likely where we see him make his return than that series in Colorado. Not only just because it gives him a little bit more time, maybe he makes another rehab start, but also making your season debut after going under back surgery in Coors Field. It's not the nicest thing you can do to a 39-year-old man. Just not the kindest way that you can say, hey, well, welcome back to the majors. Here's Coors Field. I know the Rockies are pretty atrocious this year, but they can still hit 1 or 2 or several balls out because Coors Field is absolutely hitting paradise. But getting this news about Max Scherzer making that rehab start, knowing that more of a definite timetable than we did, a couple weeks ago, just hearing that he was doing so well in his progression. I mean, this is a huge win for the Rangers of getting this updated timetable and getting him, back. Like, it could be as much as 6 weeks before, they really anticipated him coming back. I mean, they just said June after the surgery. You're like, okay, well, is that early June? Is that late June? Because that's like a 30-day span of when someone's going to come back. And it seemed like the initial thought and worry was that Max Scherzer wouldn't be ready until, late June. And since he is, on the older side, you think, okay, well, maybe build in even more recovery time than the initial timetable and say maybe he gets back by the All-Star break by mid-July. And here we are on April 22nd, saying, yep, we're going to have to see a rehab start pretty soon for Max Scherzer, and then he'll be back at some point in maybe the middle of May. And, I mean, when the Rangers didn't put him on the 60-day IL to start the season, you thought, oh, okay, that's a good sign. And again, what kind of Max Scherzer exactly we'll be getting, not entirely sure. I'm having a hard time anticipating him just being bad. I think at this point he might end up being the Rangers' best starter with, if he was around where we saw him last year in the regular season, that's better than anybody in this rotation right now. Eovaldi had a rough start against the Braves, still made it 5 1/3 innings, but those walk numbers are really getting a little concerning, especially when he is also giving up home runs. Those are the two things you don't really like to see Nate Eovaldi do, is when he's giving up walks and home runs. That's when he gets really into trouble. And just adding another starter to this mix and putting a little more pressure on each guy in this rotation to, go out there and ball out every single start, because it could be your last before you get moved to the pen, because there are so many options. And I mean, we're still waiting for Cody Bradford to come back, who looked absolutely sensational in his first 3 starts. And I mean, it's kind of amazing the amount of injuries and the quality of player that have been injured the Rangers have sustained this year and still are above 500. And not to mention Josh Sborz. I mean, this pen was so depleted that the Rangers had to throw John Gray out there on his bullpen day to go pitch an inning in 2/3 on Saturday. Like, that's the state of this bullpen right now. That's more where you see, I mean, a little bit in the offense, a little bit in the starting pitching, but especially in the bullpen, you start to run those options thin if you don't give everybody an off day by just having an off day or having your starter go throw a complete game, which you don't really see much of at all anymore these days. But still, it is a good sign for Josh Sborz. He is eligible to come off the IL on Tuesday to start that series against Seattle, but that is probably not when he's going to be back. The Rangers want to see him throw at least 1 rehab outing. That will be in Frisco. Will probably be on Tuesday. Then we could see him activated maybe as soon as Wednesday, depending on how Josh Sborz is feeling. But Sborz looked fantastic to start the season. Getting a third high leverage guy that you feel really good about in Sborz, in Robertson, and in Yates as well, with a little bit of concerns about Leclerc. I think Leclerc might work his way back into being that 4th high leverage option, so a 6th inning guy if it is a leverage spot, and then going Leclerc, Sborz, Robertson, Yates. That could be how the Rangers end up stacking things up, but every guy off the IL is a huge boost for the Rangers, including getting Nathaniel Lowe back after suffering that oblique injury, kept him out for the first 3 weeks. This is sooner than I thought Lowe would be back. I thought that it would be, maybe May, maybe even like that series against the A's on the 6th through the 8th in Oakland, I thought that might be when Nathaniel Lowe was back, because they were talking about him having maybe as many as 30 rehab games, which just felt like a lot, especially for a guy who was already playing games. Like if you're playing games and you feel like your full self, then just go ahead and get that guy up to the big leagues, especially with Walsh struggling the way he was after that good first week, after a good spring training. It was pretty much just a flash in the pan for Jared Walsh. Wishing him all the best. He ended up being the roster casualty for Nathaniel Lowe coming back. He was designated for assignment. I don't know if he will end up taking his option, going to Round Rock and trying to work on some things, maybe earn a spot on some other big league club. I think he's definitely got a future, earning things back, but the strikeout rate was kind of just awful, and he ended up losing his platoon job to Ezekiel Duran, who's not even having that great of a season, honestly. It was just kind of a state of, okay, just one more bat, especially from an offense-heavy position. Getting Nathaniel Lowe back and getting Nathaniel Lowe's defense at first base back is a huge thing for the Rangers. Glad to see him back in the Rangers lineup. Lineup is almost back to full strength, just being down one all-star caliber hitter, and Corey Seager having yet to turn it on. It gives you a little bit more hope about this offense turning a bit of a corner, but they are still struggling a little bit against lefties. That's something I want to look at right after this word from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel. It's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets guaranteed. That's $150 win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that is safe, secure, and easy to use. The Mavs started off their postseason in not the best way, but hey, I still have plenty of faith in them going on a deep run, as do I in the Stars, who are starting their playoff journey tonight against the Vegas Golden Knights. If you're feeling good about DFW getting even more championships this year than they did last year, then go over to FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Now, the Rangers offense is back to finding its form a little bit. Still not fully back, but one of the things that they have struggled with this year is against left-handed pitching, and it was pretty evident on display in the Braves' bullpen usage in the Sunday night game. Going to 3 different lefties in their pen, which, by the way, they have 4 lefties and 4 righties in their pen, which is kind of unique and interesting. But when I saw the 3rd different lefty reliever come out of the Braves' pen, I thought, okay, how many of these guys do you have out there? It's because the Rangers have not hit lefties well at all this year. This is a tweet from Adam J. Morris before the Sunday night game. He said the Rangers have a 113 weighted run created plus against right-handed pitchers this year. That's the 6th best in the majors. They have an 83 weighted runs created plus against left-handed pitchers this year. That is the 6th worst in the majors. So 6th best against righties, 6th worst against lefties. And that's what happens when you have guys in your everyday lineup like Josh Smith, like Evan Carter, who has struggled mightily against lefties. Lowe has been good at lefties at times. In 2022, his Silver Slugger season, he was even better against hitting lefties than he was against hitting righties. Last year, that was not the case for him, so we'll see if that trend ends up evening out. But again, the Rangers are, still really missing Josh Young. I feel like that's the most staggering thing about that statistic is Josh Young was one of the best left-handed mashers in the league. I mean, he just absolutely annihilated lefties as a rookie and was annihilating them already this year. Would like to see, Corey Seager not doing damage against lefties. He's really struggled against lefties just in general. He has just been in a rough way. I wouldn't be surprised if he got an off day on Tuesday to start the series against Seattle, because that Braves series was it was rough for Corey Seager. And he is going through it. He's still getting back into form. This is still basically spring training for him because of missing the entirety outside of 2 days of spring training in Arizona with that sports hernia surgery. I didn't think that would affect him as much as it has, and it's kind of weird to see Corey Seager after last year, whenever he would, come off the IL after missing, 6 weeks or 2 weeks or whatever, he'd just look immediately like himself again. It has been a little jarring to see him not be that, but again, he did have a full spring training last year, and I think I might have underestimated the importance of that. I don't think this trend about the Rangers, stinking against left-handed pitching is going to continue, especially since they've had such great offense from Adolis Garcia, and Wyatt Langford has yet to find his stride. I would really like for Wyatt Langford to turn into a lefty masher, also a righty masher, also just mashing a little bit more in general, but I don't want to get too into a rookie's bad first 3 weeks of his big league career after 40-something career minor league games, because the fact that he's up already is still impressive, and I think at some point soon we're going to see a corner turned. I don't know why I couldn't get that out of my brain or words correctly, but I think obviously a hot stretch is going to be coming for Wyatt Langford at some point, hopefully sooner as opposed to later. But you know who is already hot? A couple of different guys right now for this Rangers team, but no one hotter in all of baseball, pitching-wise, than one Kirby Yates, who is still yet to allow an earned run as a Texas Ranger. He's pitched in 9 games, 10 innings, has a whip of .40, 11 strikeouts, 3 saves, 2 wins, and again, a 0 ERA. Oh my God. I forgot what it was like to have a lockdown, trustworthy, not shaky closer. It has been so long. It has been so long since the Rangers have had an elite closer. And so far this year, that's what Kirby Yates has been. I mean, he's 37 years old, and it had been, almost basically 5 years since Kirby Yates had been, elite. But he had been elite in his career. He had been exceptional. I mean, at one point, he was the best reliever in all of baseball. 2019, he was phenomenal. 2018, he was also pretty darn good as well. But it's looking like he might be back to pretty much the 2019 version of himself. When he made the All-Star team, when he had a 1.19 ERA, when he had 41 saves and 101 strikeouts in 60 2/3 innings with the San Diego Padres, it's been a long road for him to get back there. And the Rangers saw something in him that he showed in Atlanta last year. The walks were a big problem for him, but they thought, hey, this is year 2 coming off of Tommy John surgery. That's usually when the command starts to get better. And when you're not throwing 99 miles an hour, like Kirby Yates isn't, and you have that command, that makes you a lot more effective. And so far, I don't think the Rangers are going to move on from Kirby Yates as the closer, maybe ever this year. I mean, we'll see. It's still early on in the season, but I mean, his regular numbers are phenomenal. But you look at the expected numbers, and it's showing that this is no fluke. This is just who Kirby Yates is, and he is back to being. His expected ERA is 1.50. That's in the top 2% of baseball. Expected batting average in the top 10% of baseball. Same with his chase rate, his whiff rate, the K rate in the top 12% of baseball, and he's not getting barreled up either. I mean, he is just as nasty as ever. And he's doing it without throwing really any sliders this year. He's thrown literally one slider in 130 pitches. That seems to be scrapped. He seems to be full-on four-seamer splitter at this point, and it is working phenomenally. He is getting weak contact. He is getting strikeouts. He is not giving himself up base runners that are making his job harder. He just goes in, gets guys out, gets guys to whiff on that splitter even though they know it's coming, or gets them to whiff on the fastball if they're sitting too much on the splitter. I mean, he has been everything you could want and then some, and then some. That's how amazing Kirby Yates has been. And having guys in the back end of your pen that are just lights out reliable, I mean, that is so huge. Having him and Robertson, who has a sub 150 ERA in 12 innings, that's phenomenal. Hopefully when they get when they get Josh Sborz back, he can continue being phenomenal because Sborz still hasn't allowed an earned run this year. Granted, he's only pitched in 3 games, but still, that's huge. Cole Winn has looked pretty good so far in his couple of outings of relief, and that's been really nice. Leclerc is working his way back into the tree of trust. Jacob Latz has had his moments as well, and Urania also. I mean, this pen is just so much better than last year. It's a big reason why the Rangers are 3-2 in one-run games this year, and why it feels a lot less shaky for them when you get on to the later innings, because you're like, oh, I guess here comes Kirby Yates. He's just going to be amazing again. And that's really nice. That's really nice to have. It's something the Rangers haven't had They've also had a resurgent Adolis Garcia, just surgent, I guess, because he was surging again last year. He hit his 6th home run of the season, and you might not believe this, but he is the Rangers' stolen base leader, and it's not particularly close. The only other Ranger who has multiple stolen bases is Leo Taveras. Leo Taveras is 2 for 3 in stolen base attempts. Adolis Garcia is 4 for 5, and the only time he got caught stealing was for some reason when he was trying to steal third in that game on Sunday night, or maybe it was Saturday night. Just not the smartest move. Actually, I think it was Sunday night because Wyatt Langford finally attempted his first stolen base of the season and got called out because Luis Guillorme is just a platinum glover, I guess, and made an incredible pick on a throw in the dirt, and Wyatt Langford would have, maybe should have been safe. Maybe the ball should have gone into the outfield and Langford to third, but that's just where the Rangers are at this point. But Adolis Garcia has been absolutely tearing the cover off the baseball. He is not walking really at all. That was one of the things that led to so much of his success last year, but his walk rate is back down to the bottom quarter of the league, 6.3%, whereas last year it was at 10.8%, but he's still absolutely mashing, and I'm honestly surprised that he's not walking because more guys should try walking Adolis Garcia because the rest of this Rangers lineup isn't particularly hot. But right now he's got a 984 OPS. He's hitting over 320, slugging over 600. I mean, he is just impacting the baseball at an elite rate, which is what we know Adolis Garcia can do. He's still chasing, still striking out, but he is making incredibly hard contact. And in terms of his batting run values in the top 3% of baseball, that is an incredibly valuable player. That is a guy who is going to get some MVP votes again this year, maybe even finish higher than he did last year. At this point, he has been the Rangers MVP. He has been driving in runs. He's been coming up clutch in huge situations. Already 22 RBIs in 23 games for him. I mean, his offense has been massive for this Rangers team and was a big part of scoring the vast majority of the runs, honestly, in this series in Atlanta. Adolis Garcia is an absolute gem, and seeing him thrive like this, even while he's not walking all that much, I mean, again, shows you that people who thought this guy was just a flash in the pan, they could not have been more wrong. They could not continue to be more wrong. I mean, 3 seasons where he was an All-Star twice, a Gold Glover, an ALCS MVP, people were still thinking, I don't know, eventually Adolis Garcia is going to fall off, right? Well, maybe when he hits like 40 or 45, he'll fall off. But at this rate, I'm not predicting any kind of fall off from Adolis Garcia, who has been such an incredibly valuable bat and glove and base runner to this Rangers team while it has struggled early on. A big part of why this team is passing all of its tests and still above 500, still atop the AL West, heading into this off day, which is incredibly, incredibly needed. This team's in a good spot. Could be in a little bit better of a spot, but hey, I will take it with the way this season has started, with all the injuries, with the incredibly difficult 17-game stretch without an off day. And hey, I'm feeling much better about what the Rangers are doing, especially given the context of this kind of messy, kind of mid AL West start this year. That's going to do it for today's show. Thank y'all so much for listening and subscribing, and until next time, don't forget to enjoy World Series champion Texas Rangers baseball.